heard that Carlos Correa, I heard his favorite Giant growing up was Rich Aurilia.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for for a while. Rich Aurilia joins us now.
What a coincidence.
Did they bring you in on this pitch too, or was that just a Judge thing?
That was just a Judge thing. Yeah, I don't know, Correa. I'm jokingly, but was he even born when I was playing? I don't even know.
Let's see. Well, he's 20. Yeah, come on, he's 28. So I think a very young Carlos Correa had a Rich Aurilia pennant on in his wall back in the day.
Well, I guess, but I wasn't called in on this one.
With that said, what do you think? What's your reaction to all things that have taken place over the last 24 hours?
Well, I honestly I didn't know until you texted me.
well, I'll say this, Rich. I texted you pretty quick, so
yeah. So,
yeah.
I'll say this. Once you texted me, I did some homework last night on, just his career and his numbers. One, I guess I can't be shocked at the amount of money based off of what other guys are getting. Especially the shortstop group. I mean, when Xander Bogaerts got 280, I was like, "Whoa, that's a pretty good amount of money." And Trey Turner, I mean, if I had my druthers, Trey Turner would be the guy I would want because he's to me, he's a 5-tool guy. Not to say Correa isn't, but the money didn't surprise me with the way things are going this offseason. The years did, and I have to think that this has something to do with the average annual value being a little bit lower for competitive balance tax. I don't know how the contract's broken up. I don't know if there's signing bonuses included in that 350, but man, he'd be closer to collecting Social Security when this contract's over than anything else. I mean, that's 13 years, a long, long time.
Seriously, when you think in terms of, you played until you were 37 and this guy's going to play until he's 41. And one of the pieces to this whole deal is that he's a shortstop. Brandon Crawford's a shortstop, and now he's going to have to play elsewhere. What's it like when you go from being a shortstop like you were for most of your career, and then now you're going to be asked to play elsewhere?
Well, my situation was a little different. It wasn't to the same magnitude. I mean, when I was switched or I started playing other positions, I got injured in Cincinnati, and when I came back, the guy who took over from me, Felipe Lopez, was, just having his career year, and he made the All-Star team that year. So I just took it upon myself to play different positions. I started working out at second, third, first. It's got to be hard for a guy like Craw who spent his whole career in one spot, multiple-time Gold Glove Award winner. But again, he only has, I think, a year left on his contract, so you feel like they're going to go ask him to move over to second or third. I would think the team would benefit more by him being at second base just because I feel like he's a better defender and has better range and is quicker than Thairo Estrada. So if you have Correa and him up the middle, that's a pretty formidable, middle infield. But it remains to be seen. It really, just the aspect of the 13 years is really, really shocks me.
Yeah, it just looks like all the guys are going till they're 40 or 41 years old. But I think you're probably spot on, Rich, which is there a competitive balance tax thing? Like when you see more years, in a way, I think it actually benefits the team. They stretch the money out a little bit. The Twins offered more per year than the Giants did. The Giants just offered a bunch more years. So I think that's the way they want it. But I also think most fans, when you look at that, and I wonder what you think about this, they're kind of like, who cares? Like, we'll worry about, 13 years from now, I don't know, 11 years from now.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, guys, too, is like all these contracts that are 10, 11, 12, 13 years. Listen, once you get past year 6 of these, it's a crapshoot just because guys get older. And how many guys in their late 30s, 40s really produce at a high level for that high average annual salary? To me, I can only think of one or two ever. So I think going in that those last few years are going to be a wash, and you hope you get those first 5 or 6 that are good. And, if I look at Correa, 6 years would take him probably about 35 years old. And, at that point, another thing that helps all these clubs now in a way is that the National League has a DH now. So these guys, maybe when they do get a little older, if they can still swing the bat a little bit, they can DH and get them off the field if that's where their age is showing up on defense. But, I would have to think that this 13 years has to do with, competitive balance. They did the math last night. It comes out to an average annual value per year at $26.9 million. If you look at the rest of the league and guys' average annual value is probably, not in the top 10, not in the top 15 maybe, but, if you look at the length of it and the whole aspect of it, I mean, it's a great contract. And I think the one thing that surprised me was, we know they offered Judge 10 years, and he's 30. So you gave Correa 13 years, but look at the track record since Farhan's been here. 3 years. Is that the biggest contract given out?
That's correct.
And it was only like 30-something million bucks, maybe the DeSclafani. So that really shocks me. And that, to me, I look at the business side of it. The Judge thing to me was really important for the organization because he's a guy that brings people in the seat. He puts people in the seats and he sells jerseys and you sell more concessions when he's there. Correa is a great player, but I don't know, is everybody, jonesing to get to the ballpark to watch Carlos Correa? I don't know yet, and that's a fan question to ask. But he is a good player. I did my research. For me, the thing for him is he has to stay healthy. He's had some years that were great years and some years that he just didn't play very much. So I think that's important for this ball club. And the way they use their bench and stuff, I think they'll probably, load management him, at times that they have to.
So he won't face righties, is what you're saying. Can you imagine, Rich?
Little Correa Crawford platoon.
Yeah,
Who's
something
in?
like that.
Who's
exactly.
in?
Oh man. Yeah, but you're right. You hit it on the head for me because it's like, I don't know. Is Mitch Haniger going to play every day? I don't know. We've already been told and we've seen it that Jock Peterson doesn't play every day because he's not comfortable against lefties, but he's making close to $20 million this year with the qualifying offer. So it's really weird. You wonder if in some aspect, and not with the superstar players. Cray doesn't play every day. Judge would have played every day. But some of the guys on the outskirts that maybe are coming here, guys want to play every day. They don't want to be benched against righties or lefties. And I just don't know if that impedes some of the other free agents that they might have an interest in. I don't know. That's a question for the organization.
Rich Aurilia with us here. Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Want to mention real quick, Steph Curry has been announced as questionable for tonight's game against Indiana. More on that coming up after our conversation with Rich. But Rich, let me ask you this, because I think what you just said was interesting with regard to Judge being a gate draw, butts in seats guy, not sure about Correa. If we remove that thought, attendance and business, just baseball, who do you think was a better fit for the Giants, Judge or Correa?
Right now, I would say Judge. I think that, listen, he's a guy that really, okay, he's not going to hit 62 home runs playing in Oracle, but he's a big guy. That park's not many parks are going to hold that guy. Where Correa, he had a nice year last year. But, again, he didn't have the same lineup he had in Houston. He was playing in a different ballpark. And from what I hear, Minnesota's a pretty big ballpark to play in. I just think the big scheme of things that if you have Judge, you probably can draw more of the other players from, outside the organization's free agents, maybe. Come on. But again, that's a question that's my opinion. And, that's a question for the organization, but I think they had to do something. they had to do something. And Correa was a guy that was, I'd be curious to see what the talks were with Dansby Swanson, as compared to Correa, just because, they're both great players, but you would assume that Correa is probably going to get about $150 million more in his contract than Dansby Swanson would. So, now he controls the table, right? Dansby Swanson, he's got like 5 teams out there now.
Totally.
He's the only guy left standing. So we'll see what happens there.
Must be nice. And for Correa, $26 million and change a season, which breaks down to be about $2 million a month, about $500,000 a week. Turns out to be about $70,000 a day. Rich, could you survive on that?
I think I could. That would buy me a lot of wine. Good there. I'm okay with that. I'm just thinking. I was just thinking in my head. I'm like, okay, so if they move Craw over, I'm like, this will be like one of the first times in like a really long time there's no number 35 at shortstop.
Oh, wow.
The Chris Spire days, right? Chris Spire, and then, was gone for a few years, and then myself, and then Craw, and now Craw comes in.
Maybe Craw needs to change more than his position. Maybe he needs to give number 35 to Carlos Correa as well. We don't know.
I don't know, but I think a lot that gets lost in this shuffle is, I personally, because I know the guy and I know what a great competitor and player he is, there's a little part of me that feels bad for Craw because, he's being asked to move positions when, he really hasn't done anything to kind of, make that move happen. He's played pretty well there over the 10-year period or whatever it's been. So, we'll see. We'll see how he reacts, but I know he'll be a pretty damn good second baseman if that's where he goes, or he'll be a pretty damn good third baseman if that's where he plays.
Yeah, they're saying third base is probably the initial move at least. Rich, I wonder this. You're obviously very close to the organization, yet you're also still, as we've been discussing, you're just kind of viewing this and what the regime is doing. How did yesterday change your perceptions of this regime, if at all?
I'll say this: what I've learned through this whole process of this offseason, starting with the Judge thing, I know that they're trying to bring people in here. When you're throwing around numbers like has been thrown around, and you're talking to players of that caliber, the effort's there. Whether or not it's Correa or Judge or bringing Rodon back or whatever it is, the effort's there. It could be anything now at this point where maybe some guys are just like, I don't, see where this team is really going in the next few years because a lot of prospects haven't really panned out yet in the minor leagues. But I do know that they're making the effort, and we hope this year, at least I hope, as a fan of this team and this organization who's treated me like family for the last 20-something years of my life, I hope that they can get somewhere to an in-between of last year and 2021. And if you do that, you got a chance of making the postseason. And then, as we've seen, it's not who the best team is, it's who's hot at the right time to get to the World Series. Granted, I think the best team won the World Series this year, but anything could happen. You just got to get your hat in the ring and then take it from there. So I do think that they're making every effort to make this team better. And sometimes you don't get the guy you want. It happens, and you move on. And they moved on to a pretty good player. So I hope he has we know he's going to have a long career here, right? He's going to have at least 13 years.
Yeah, right. If he plays in every game, it's more than 2,000 games in the orange and black.
Yeah, so at least a long, productive career with the Giants. And I think what's really good for them is that I think he's a leader. And what I mean is, like, he's more of a vocal, outspoken guy. They've had leaders for years. They had, Buster, who was kind of quiet, but he was a leader. Craw is kind of quiet, but he's a leader. I think this guy's a more vocal guy, and I think he's going to be great for the Latin players on this team as a leader. He's a young player. He's had a lot of success. And from all things that I've heard, he's a great clubhouse presence. So hopefully this all, we look back in 7 years and nobody even remembers how many years or how much money his contract is for.
It's going to be fun to see him in there. We know he won't wear 35, and you mentioned Chris Spire, yourself, Brandon Crawford, also Gaylord Perry wore 35 as we shout out the late, great Giant starter. We know he won't wear number 4 like he has in his career. Mel Ott has that retired. Maybe he wears number 1 if he can get it away from Austin Dean.
Right. I think he's going to pretty much, unless there's a name hanging on the rafter, he's got to pick whatever number he wants, with the exception of a couple. But, yeah, man, for fans, I think it's exciting because, you lost out on the guy you really wanted, but, you kind of got your 1B choice or whatever. So I hope the fans are excited, and I hope just they got to get back on the winning ways, and hopefully that's this year.
From one great shortstop to another, Rich Aurilia on the Carlos Correa signing. Hey, man, thanks so much for hopping on.
Yeah, guys, no problem, man. Have a happy holiday.
Yeah, happy holidays to you, too. The great Rich Aurilia.